Hello friends, I'm Dr. Dani McVety, founder of Lap of Love Veterinary Hospice, and I can't believe it's been almost 15 years since we've been around, and it's such an honor to help so many of you, and honestly had no idea that this amazing organization, this amazing mission was going to turn into this. So I just want to thank you guys all for being such a wonderful support and for being here as well. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most difficult things that we talk about, not only as veterinarians, but let's be honest, as pet lovers, pet parents as well. And that is about aggressive pet euthanasia. This is not a very popular topic at all. In fact, this is a very, very difficult topic, and it's even a contentious topic at times within our veterinary community. And I think it's very, very important that we talk about this together, and that those of you that are going through this, and those of you that have struggled with this, and those of you that are struggling with this, at least have the ability to hear from a veterinarian a new and different approach, and perhaps and even have a safe place to land if you are going through something like this. So before I get started, I'm going to share with you that I'm a mother of 4, so I have 4 human children, and I have had multiple animal children in my life as well. When I was in veterinary school, I adopted a little rat terrier, and she was just the sweetest thing in the world. She was just a lovely, 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 lovely little girl. And I figured out she was only lovely with me. To make a long story short, the older that she got, she became very nippy. And as I then added human children to my life, I found out that she was a very, very difficult dog to deal with, particularly with little kids. And now she was a rat terrier, so a 15-pound dog that's nipping is very different than a 150-pound dog that's nipping. And it's a different level of pain, and it's a different level of scarring, and it's a different level of, obviously, bite that happens as well. So as she got older and older, I figured out that it was difficult, very difficult. And by this time I had an additional human child, but also additional rat terrier as well. I just love them. They're so much fun. And my second one was just as difficult to manage, but when she was cranky, she didn't bite like the first one. And the first one, when she bit, she drew blood with every bite. But my second one did not. So to make a long story short, I actually had to make the difficult decision to euthanize my first one. Her name was Seiko, and I was about 3 or 4 years out of vet school, and I had just started Lap of Love, and it was growing. And I remember standing there in my house, and I was painting a wall of my home, and I thought to myself, I'm like, I need me to tell me that it's okay, because I was struggling with this decision a lot. And so after a few minutes, I'm sitting here telling myself this, and I thought to myself, I'm like, of course I have me. Of course I can give myself permission. And in fact, spiritually thinking, like, that's kind of almost the only thing that I really can give myself is that internal permission. So I remember in that moment painting my home, and I'm glad I'm not crying through this story. I'm painting my home, and I just kind of let that guilt go of euthanizing her. And it was a really big moment for me, because I tell that story to other people that are going through this, because it's important for us to realize that you don't have people around you that always support you. I didn't even tell those closest to me when I was actually going to make that decision, and I just kind of made the decision after one particularly bad incident. So that's actually the first rule that I always tell families when I am discussing aggressive pet euthanasia with them, is, as I say, don't talk about this with anyone unless you know they support you. Because what happens is that we've been told by the exterior world and by society in general that it's not the breed, it's how they're raised. So all of a sudden you have someone like me that has raised this dog thinking, like, did I do something wrong? Was it my fault that she's like that? And of course, I know as a veterinarian, as a scientist, no, it's not. There really is a genetic predisposition for some of these actions that some animals have. And it's the same reason why we don't condone having a cougar in your home, right? There's just no need. It's not safe to have a cougar. And along the same lines, it's not safe to have a lot of these particularly larger dogs that are very, very dangerous in the home. So if you have a 150-pound Dojo Argentino that is bred, literally it is genetically put together in order to attack and bite and protect, that dog has a different involvement in a different relationship in the family than obviously another little Bichon or Maltese or, Springer Spaniel, something like that are bred. So I want you I want everyone to really understand that there are genetic predispositions for actions, for activity, just like there are for genetic, what we call phenotype. So that means what is actually being seen on the outside. We choose dogs that have beautiful hair coats, that have particular ways of looking, that have particular noses, facial features. And we have to understand that with that also comes a genetic predisposition for other things as well, meaning that it can actually be in their genetics to be programmed to fight, to protect, to bite. And that's a really important thing. So knowing that you need to have surrounding yourself by a really, really good support group, and also understanding that it's not your fault. The third thing I want to communicate is the fact that there are a lot of phrases that we can throw out. And now certain veterinarians that may not be as open to euthanasia of aggressive pets, because shocker, okay, all us veterinarians have, an array of opinions, and some of us have been through these things many, many times, and we understand what it's like, and some of us have not. And I will tell you that the first year out of veterinary school, I definitely had a much larger capacity and much larger desire to feel like certain animals can be therapied through, bad behavior. But as I got older and as I saw more and more and had a greater experience in veterinary medicine, I realized that there is probably a smaller window than I originally thought. So I just want to offer that to you, that if you have a veterinarian that you may think may not be on the same page, that you may need other opinions, do not feel bad about going to a different doctor and asking their opinion, because that does not mean that you're a bad person. That just means that maybe that doctor doesn't see things the way you do. And I can tell you guys from many, 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 many years of doing this on the road that what we see in a clinic is not always what's happening in the home. And there are some dogs that are wonderful and sweet and lovely under some circumstances. And as soon as you get them potentially in a home or behind a fence or in a leash or something like that, they're a completely different dog. That doesn't mean that they are completely and all bad, but that means that there's very, very particular things that you need to do as owner of that animal to make sure that people are safe. And if you can't do that, then you need to consider a different option. And of course, approaching that non-judgmentally. But the phrases that we like to throw around a lot there's 4 of them. There's treatable, adoptable, affordable, and healthy. So that first one being treatable, okay, sure. What if you have, a young pit bull that is, potentially bit somebody or tried to bite somebody or something like that. And, you think that it's treatable. Maybe we can treat out, this particular symptom. That may or may not be the case. Obviously, professional is going to have to help you manage that. Second word is adoptable. Not all these dogs are not adoptable. And when I'm talking with families and they think, well, should I just drop them off on the side of the road? Should I, give them to a shelter? What should I do? I said, if a family adopts this dog that has either killed another dog or bit a child or has a consistent history of biting other people, strangers that come in the room, that dog is not adoptable by my definitions. Now, it's a subjective statement, right? But that dog is, God forbid, it goes into a shelter and then gets adopted by somebody else who's unaware of their behavioral capacity and then has a child, their baby, 9-month-old child crawling across them. It can be very dangerous. So that word adoptable is very, very subjective as well. And then affordable. Sure, you might be able, to train something out if you had $10,000 to spend on a trainer. Not a lot of people have that type of disposable income. Not only that, but what about, the actual time that it takes as well. So even that word treatable is very subjective. And then, of course, this last word that we like to throw around, that dog is healthy. No, I would never euthanize, or you shouldn't consider euthanizing the dog because it's healthy. There is mental illness in veterinary medicine. It's something that we are, in our animals, it's something that we are learning to identify, learning to grow with, learning to understand. And just like, I say this, kind of with a little bit of jest, but we all know humans that maybe have had wonderful lives and wonderful background and they've been raised nicely and they just have some type of mental illness that comes along with it. And it was no one's fault, right? It wasn't because their parents did something to them or something like that. It is just something that develops, and sometimes we have a genetic predisposition for that and sometimes we don't, just like animals. So it's an important thing to just remember that because you have an animal that's aggressive and it has behavioral issues, that doesn't mean that you're actually working with a healthy animal. And if a different veterinarian thinks that they're not going to euthanize, or if somebody wants to judge you because you don't have any other options with this healthy pet, it's just important for you to understand within yourself that that does not mean you actually have a healthy animal. So just remember that those words are very subjective: treatable, adoptable, affordable, and healthy. So the last little bit I want to share with you guys is what we can do and what we can't do. So as a veterinarian that has approached obviously many of these situations, of course, we approach them with complete non-judgmentalism and making sure that you feel supported through this decision, that you understand what alternatives may lie with this situation as well. And I want to share a story with you guys as well. So this was a couple of years ago. One of our amazing doctors that's here in Tampa, Dr. Lauren, she called me in the middle of an appointment and she said, Dani, there's this 8-month-old dog and I just can't euthanize. And she's like, I know that the family's thinking the right thing, but I kind of feel like I want to maybe give him a chance somewhere else. And I'd like to take him home. And we've all done this. I've done this as well. But this is just the most perfect example I have of it. So she takes the dog home. Oh, and by the way, the family wanted to euthanize this pet because they adopted this dog. It was a few months old, and it was a kind of a Labrador, the typical Florida brown dog that has probably a bunch of everything. She adopted the dog from a shelter, came home. The dog killed one of her Yorkies. And this lady was so sweet because she's like, I kind of understand why she killed the first one because it was a little bit of a mean dog. So it's like, okay. But then what happened is that the puppy attacked the other her other Yorkie as well. And so once she knew that she attacked the second Yorkie, she knew that she had a big problem on her hands. That's when she called us, and she called us because we were the safe place to land and we were supportive and kind and willing to help her. Whereas sometimes you don't always find that support. So we went out there. Dr. Lauren saw her. She's like, you know what? Let me see if I can just give her a chance. And if not, obviously we're going to have to euthanize her compassionately as well. So brought her home. Dr. Lauren has 2 small kids, so this was not going to be a place where the dog was going to be, in a safe place that obviously would be able to interact with the family. You don't want a dog living in the crate every day, right? So she brings the dog to another one of our wonderful people that works with us. And this gentleman also likes to train animals on the side, and he's been doing it for many years. So he took the dog home and he had her for about 4 or 5 days. And he called me afterwards and he goes, there's absolutely no way. He goes, she's fine. The dog is fine for a little bit. And then as soon as somebody tries to touch a food bowl, tries to do one little thing, just approaches her just the wrong way, he goes, there's no warning at all. And she turns and snarls and would eventually bite somebody. So him and I actually took the dog to our office and we loved on her and kissed on her and we ended up euthanizing her, and we have her privately cremated and her ashes are in our office with her medical record as an example of this situation. And again, this was an 8-month-old puppy that would have normally been super adoptable, right, by other people. But when they have this genetic predisposition, it's just so tough to work with. So I just wanted to share that story with you, that we have multiple times, many of us have attempted to do this, have attempted to treat these animals. And it's just very different. Other thing I'll share too is that, myself, again, like I said, mentioned before, I have 4 children, and my opinion on this really shifted when I had kids. I don't know about you guys, but I guess as an animal lover myself, I see all the articles with children and elderly people that get attacked by animals and killed. And it absolutely breaks my heart, because it breaks my heart, obviously, for the human, but of course it breaks my heart for the animal as well, that they were in a situation that wasn't contained, that wasn't safe for them, that wasn't, certainly letting them be everything that they could be. So again, it's in our oath, our veterinary oath, to maintain human safety and to be a part of society in that capacity of helping keep humans and the pets safe. So it is part of our veterinary oath to be a part of this journey with you and to help. There's 2 resources I'd love to give you guys. One of them we'll put in the comments section right now. It's an article that I wrote. I can't believe it was about 8 years ago when I wrote this article. But it was an article called "The Unfair Necessity of Euthanizing an Aggressive Dog." And that title is very, very important to me because every word is something that we deal with. It's unfair and it's a necessity. It's an unfair thing that someone has a dog that is aggressive and mean and traumatic and potentially harmful to humans. It's unfair, and yet it is a necessity that we as a human population and as a veterinary population as well decide that we need to do the best thing that we can do. And it doesn't mean it's the right thing, right? What's really right? Who are we to judge what's right and not right? But it is the best thing that we can do is to remove that pet from a situation where they could potentially harm somebody very, very badly. And at the end of this article, I actually have an email that is between myself and a family that I helped. I euthanized their dog due to aggression. And I think it would be a very important one and be very hopefully helpful to you as well if you're going through this, just to read that, because you can read the words that they said to me and the words that I said to them. And hopefully it rings true for you that it's something that helps. The other resource is that we do have a pet loss support group that is specifically for a behavioral euthanasia, and obviously 90% of that is going to be aggression. There are other things as well, and potentially I'll do another Facebook Live on this at a different time, but meaning behavioral euthanasia, cats urinating inappropriately around the house, things like that, that of course are very, very difficult to manage as well. So with that, I will leave you all. I want to thank everybody for being here. And if you have any questions at all, of course, feel free to email us. My personal email we'll put in the comments, drdani@lapoflove.com. And we also have our pet loss support, petloss@lapoflove.com. And if anyone ever would like to reach out for any support pre or post loss, please feel free to give us a call. We have doctors that handle phone calls like this and can at least help you through the decision-making process. Okay, take care.